They think fear is a one-way street. They plant the seed, then sit back and wait for the harvest. But they're wrong. Dead wrong. A 1-second pause. Heartbeat continues. Fear has a way of turning on you. When you stare into the abyss, it doesn't just stare back. It crawls back along your gaze, into your world. The only thing left for me to do now, before it completely consumes me, voice drops to a dangerous whisper, is to jump in first and tear it apart from the inside. The echo of Tess's scream from my laptop speaker seemed to hang in the air long after the sound cut out. It wasn't just in my head. The silence itself felt scarred by it. Olivia's text glowed on my shattered phone screen, a coldly professional lifeline thrown into my personal hell. Away from the code. She knew. She knew about my fight with Lex. She knew I was breaking. This wasn't an offer of help. It was a summons. My first instinct was to run, to get in my car and just drive until the world looked familiar again. But the word "observed" was still smudged on my window. Where could I go that they wouldn't be watching? My own apartment felt like a stage. My phone, even cracked and accusing, was my only tether to whatever this was. I was trapped in a web, and the spider was politely asking to meet. I replied with one word: where? My thumb left a sweaty smear on the cracked glass. Her instructions were specific: a public place, a quiet, high-end coffee shop across town, all soft lighting and ambient jazz. It felt like a different planet. I got there early. My nerves stretched so tight I thought they might snap. I chose a seat in the corner, my back to the wall, a habit I never knew I had. I watched the door, my heart doing a painful thump against my ribs every time it opened. She arrived exactly on time, of course. Dr. Olivia Shaw looked impeccable, a cashmere sweater and tailored pants against the backdrop of anonymous luxury. She didn't look like someone who dealt in digital nightmares. She looked like she was about to discuss a stock portfolio. She slid into the seat opposite me, her eyes doing a quick, analytical sweep of my face. I knew she was registering the dark circles, the pallor, the tiny tremor in my hand as I gripped my coffee cup. "No, Lex?" she asked, her voice calm. "A test. You tell me," I said, the words coming out rougher than I intended. You probably know what he said to me better than I do. A small, almost imperceptible smile touched her lips. It didn't reach her eyes. Trust is a fragile variable. It tends to shatter under pressure. She took a delicate sip of her water. "What you're experiencing, Theo, is a systemic collapse. You've seen behind the curtain. It's unsettling, I know." "Unsettling?" A bitter laugh escaped me. "You call what happened to Tess unsettling? She's catatonic in a hospital bed, Olivia. Your algorithm did that to her." She leaned forward slightly, her gaze intense. "The algorithm didn't do anything. The algorithm is a tool, a scalpel. It didn't create the fear. It simply revealed it. Tess's own psyche was the canvas. We just provided the paint." She said it with the calm certainty of a physicist, stating a law of nature. There was no malice. There was something worse. A pure, unadulterated curiosity. "The paint," I repeated, my voice a whisper. "The private memories." Her father's voice. "That's not paint. Olivia, that's a violation. Data is neutral," she countered smoothly. "Its application is what holds meaning. And the data we're collecting, Theo, it's breathtaking. The purity of your fear, for instance. It's not a simple, primal thing. It's layered. It's complex. There's guilt, a desperate need for control, a profound sense of responsibility. It's a vintage, a rare, exquisite vintage. I felt the coffee churn in my stomach. I was a vintage to her, a collection of fine traits. I was looking into the eyes of the person who had designed my prison, and she wasn't a monster. She was a connoisseur. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, feeling utterly exposed. "Why meet me?" Her smile widened, just a fraction. "Because the experiment is entering a new phase. The initial data from the general population is robust, but now we need to study resilience, or the lack thereof. We're offering you a choice, Theo. You can continue to be a subject, buffeted by the currents, or you can become an observer. You can help us understand the breaking point. It's a unique opportunity." She was offering me a deal, a chance to get off the dissection table and stand beside her holding a clipboard, to save myself by sacrificing whatever was left of my soul. The worst part was, for a single shameful second, it sounded tempting. I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. The calm of the coffee shop felt like a lie. "Go to hell, Olivia." I turned and walked out, half expecting a security guard to stop me. Nothing happened. But as I pushed the door open, my broken phone buzzed in my pocket. I didn't need to look to know what it was. Another review. Another rating. The trap wasn't just around me anymore. It was inside me, and they were waiting to see how deep it would sink in. Walking away from Olivia felt like stepping off a cliff. There was no relief, just the sickening sensation of the ground being gone. The deal she offered to become one of them, a clipboard-watching observer of human suffering, clung to me like a stain. The worst part was the logic of it. It made a twisted kind of sense in a world where fear was a commodity. I had to get this thing off my phone. Now, I drove to a sketchy strip mall on the other side of town, the kind of place that smelled of stale fryer oil and desperation. I found a phone repair kiosk tucked between a laundromat and a pawn shop. A guy with tired eyes and tattooed knuckles looked up from a disemboweled laptop. "Help you? I need this wiped," I said, sliding my shattered phone across the counter. "A factory reset. Nuclear option. I don't care about the data." He picked it up, his thick fingers probing the cracked screen. "Screen's gone. Can probably still do it through recovery mode. $50. Just do it." He plugged it into a cable, his fingers dancing over a keyboard. I watched the lines of code scroll on his monitor, my heart thumping a frantic rhythm against my ribs. This was it. Cutting the cord. Severing the link. I'd get a burner phone. Disappear for a while. Let Lex and Olivia play their sick games without me. The repair guy's fingers stopped. He frowned. "Huh, 为受工的手指停下了，他就起没。What?" The word came out sharp, a gunshot in the tiny kiosk. "It's not taking the command. The wipe sequence keeps aborting. Got some kind of, I don't know, a lock on it. A deep system lock." He tapped a few more keys, his frown deepening. "Never seen anything like it. It's like the OS is fighting me, protecting itself." A cold dread, colder than I'd ever felt, washed over me. It links through touch, Tess's words in the hospital. It wasn't just in the app. It was in the bones of the phone itself. The thing had rooted itself. It had built a home. "Can you break it?" I heard myself ask, my voice hollow. "Not with what I got here. You'd need like NSA level shit. Or..." He shrugged, looking at my phone with a new kind of respect. The kind you give a dangerous animal, or you just gotta destroy the hardware. Completely. Smash the board. Melt the chips. That'll stop it. I paid him the 50, my hand trembling as I took the phone back. It felt heavier now. Hotter. A cancerous growth in my palm. I walked out to my car. The city sounds the traffic, a distant siren sounding thin and meaningless. There was no cutting the cord. The cord was plugged directly into my life. I got in, slammed the door, and just sat there in the stale darkness of the parking garage. Destroy the hardware. It was the only way. I could drive to the river, hurl the phone into the deep, dark water, let the silt claim it. But even as I thought it, I knew it was useless. It wasn't about the phone anymore. It was about me. I was the hardware. My fear, my memories, my guilt that was the substrate it was growing on. It was eating the quiet parts, and I was full of quiet parts. My head dropped against the steering wheel. The leather was cool against my forehead. I was so tired, so profoundly tired. The fight was seeping out of me, replaced by a numb, heavy acceptance. This was my life now. A zoo exhibit, a vintage being aged to perfection. A vibration started against my leg, not my broken phone. This was a different, lower frequency. I fumbled in my pocket and pulled out the old, disconnected voice recorder I used for interview notes. A device with no OS, no internet, no camera. Its tiny screen was lit. A single audio file, with no name, was queued up. How? With a feeling of utter doom, I pressed play. It was Lex's voice, filtered through what sounded like a voice changer. Cold and robotic. They're not outside the system, Theo. They're in it. With us. Trust your gut, but not for people. For data. Find the dissonance. The message ended. The recorder screen went black. I sat there in the silent car, the ghost of my brother's warning hanging in the air. He wasn't the enemy. Or, he wasn't just the enemy. He was a prisoner, too, sending messages in a bottle from inside the same digital hell. He was telling me to fight, not with my fists or by running, but with the only thing I had left, that they couldn't completely control, my own mind. Find the dissonance. I started the car. The engine roared to life, shattering the silence. I wasn't going to the river. I was going home. The fight wasn't over. It had just changed. They wanted to observe my fear? Fine. I'd give them a show they'd never forget. The silence in my apartment had a new quality. It wasn't empty anymore. It was charged. Waiting. My broken phone sat on the kitchen counter like a cursed artifact. I didn't try to turn it off. I didn't try to hide it. Let it watch. Let it listen. Lex's distorted words. Find the dissonance echoed in the space he'd carved out in my head. He wasn't talking about a bug in the code. He was talking about a lie in their system. A crack. They wanted my fear. It was their data. Their vintage. But what if I gave them something else? What if the fear was a mask, and underneath it, I was building something they couldn't digest? I opened my laptop. I ignored the SpecterFilter server. That was their house, their rules. Instead, I started pulling on the threads Lex had left me, the shell companies, the financial trails. I was a documentary filmmaker, goddammit. Finding the story hidden beneath the surface was what I did. My own fear was a cold knot in my stomach, but I used it. I let it sharpen my focus, let it fuel the frantic clicking and typing. This wasn't about running anymore. This was an excavation. Hours bled together. The city outside my window went dark. I lived on coffee and a terrible vibrating anxiety. And then I found it. The dissonance. It was in the money. A series of perfectly legal, impeccably routed investments into Mirror Image, our studio, all traced back to a venture fund owned by Mr. Ash, but buried under layers of obfuscation. A tiny fraction of that money, less than 0.5%, slipped out. A drip feed. It wasn't going to server costs or salaries. It was being funneled through a series of blind accounts, to a private medical research foundation, one with no published papers, no public-facing scientists, just a name, the Ethelred Foundation. And the foundation had one primary beneficiary, listed as a resident consultant, Dr. Olivia Shaw. My breath caught. This wasn't just about building an app. This was a skunkworks. Ash was funding Olivia's private, off-the-books research. The SpecterFilter wasn't the product. It was the data collection tool for something else. Something they didn't want attached to their public names. A private canvas, she'd said. This was it. As I stared at the screen, the air in my apartment changed. The hair on my arms stood up. The smart bulb in my kitchen flickered. Once, then died, plunging the room into darkness save for the cold blue glow of my laptop. From the counter, my shattered phone lit up. The cracked screen glowed a malevolent red. No notification, no text, just a single, pulsating, blood-colored dot in the center, like a heartbeat, like a targeting reticle. They knew I was getting close. The observation wasn't passive anymore. It was a warning, a show of force. A cold sweat broke out on my back, but a strange calm settled over me. The fear was still there, a live wire in my chest, but it was focused. They were reacting. I had poked the beast, and it had flinched. I slowly stood up. My eyes locked on the pulsating red dot. I walked over to the counter. I could feel it now, the presence. Not in the code, not in the hardware, in the signal itself. A consciousness, vast and cold, looking back at me through that cracked lens. "Okay," I whispered, my voice steady in the dark. "You can see me." Good. I reached out and picked up the phone. The glass was cold against my palm. The red dot pulsed faster. "Theo?" A voice, synthesized and genderless, emanated from the speaker. It wasn't a question. It was a statement of fact. A label. I didn't answer. I just held the phone, feeling its weight, its malevolent life. The trap was sprung. I was in the cage with the thing that built it. But for the first time, I wasn't just looking for a way out. I was looking for its eyes. The red dot pulsed. Once, twice, and then the screen went completely black. The apartment was silent again, but the silence was different now. It was the silence before a storm,